welcome you back to Willemstad, where we take a peek back at the 90 minutes that was in our first of three fixtures in Group B this afternoon. St. Kitts and Nevis and Bonaire locking horns for the first time in under-20 competition, and for St. Kitts and Nevis needing a win to keep pace with Jamaica. It set the stage for what was a fun one. It opened up rather slowly. Bonaire, though, on the front foot. St. Kitts and Nevis struggling to create early on, but as the half wore on, you started to see them pop up with some half chances. This quick turn from Taquan Hamilton, in which he just drives the effort wide, and then this was a glaring chance for them to take the lead. Naquan Allen darting through two defenders and putting a clear-cut shot on frame led to a quality stop from Denyor Cecilia, who made a few of those to keep them level throughout the match. And as the game wore on, you saw St. Kitts and Nevis, especially at the tail end of the first half, begin to cause trouble, and they finally found the breakthrough at the tail end of the first half. Savvy K. Morton, for the second consecutive game, opening the scoring with this tight angle effort. You could argue that Cecilia maybe should do better here. He doesn't close down his near post, but none of them will be complaining on the St. Kitts and Nevis side of things. Their star 17-year-old putting them in front again, and it looked like from there they'd be on their way to claiming 3 points despite the goal coming against the grain of play. And as we headed into halftime, it was a narrow cushion for St. Kitts and Nevis, albeit a very unconvincing one. And you thought that, yes, they're in front, but they need to turn up the effort in the second half. There were chances the other way for Bonaire to get back in the game. And this was the final real chance before the halftime whistle sounded for both of these two teams. Not much for St. Kitts and Nevis brewing in the penalty area outside of those two aforementioned chances and the goal. And at halftime, they held the slimmest of cushions. They were on their way to 3 points, but it was not secure. And that set the backdrop for what wound up being a thrilling second half as tired legs set in. Bonaire really opened slowly in the second half, but they were able to win a free kick, and this is where the equalizer came. Van Ryan whipping it in, ushered along by Moeller into the path of Ivar Bacalar, who finished convincingly on 51 minutes to pull Bonaire level. That the first ever goal Bonaire has scored in under-20 qualifying, a historic moment for the Caribbean Warriors, who would use that moment to push on and hunt more. They were sensational for spells in the second half, but just unable to find a way through that St. Kitts and Nevis back line. At the death, their best chance emerged. You see Morenciane here. This cross comes in. It's awkward. On a different day, maybe that creeps in. That's right after a glaring chance in which flight was closed down from a ridiculously tight angle by Maynard, who came up massive for St. Kitts and Nevis following the Bonaire equalizer. We welcome you back to Willemstad, where we take a peek at our full-time highlights in this one-sided fixture between Puerto Rico and Turks and Caicos. A first ever meeting between these two squads, and the side favored to win came out on top in dominant fashion. Puerto Rico looking to set the pace and put pressure on Jamaica ahead of their fixture later tonight, and they got off to a fast start. Inside the opening minute, a long-range hit there from Justin Blanco, drawing a quality stop out of Sammy Harvey, and that set the tone for the remainder of the 90 minutes. Just all-in-all domination. Puerto Rico winning a penalty on 14 minutes, and Isaiah Vicente, who won the spot kick, stepped up from 12 yards and would deliver. This a textbook penalty. You see it's one back upfield by Burgos, and then there's a slight shove in the back. And anytime you have a shove with an extended arm in the back, the referee is likely going to point to the spot, and Vicente did not disappoint. Sammy Harvey probably feels he should have done better here, but the ball just bounces underneath him, and Puerto Rico tucked themselves in front just inside the opening quarter of an hour. And from there, they continued to push on and create chance after chance. This was never a lead that felt in danger, with the exception of one half-hearted penalty appeal immediately following Puerto Rico's opener, and then they would grab the second. Blanco was ruled onside here, played it through perfectly to Holdy Diaz, who was definitely on at the back post. Well weighted, Diaz just winning the foot race and diving as it slid home. The question is whether Blanco was offside when receiving that initial through ball. The referee did not put his flag up, and it was 2-0 just beyond the half-hour mark. At halftime, Puerto Rico 2-0 to the good, And from there, it was pretty much cruise control. A second half which saw them dominate the run of play from the initial whistle. Never really saw their lead in danger and would eventually add a third. Burgos coming inside. This was knocked out by the goalkeeper, Harvey, and Burgos really started to take over the match for large spells of this second half. Probably should have added a third here. Eventually, they would, as Burgos drove it wide. The overlap came in, and this was a terrific cross from what looks to be Jose Ortiz. Excuse me, it's Gamaliel Ortiz who actually whipped the cross in, and it was right into the radius of Vicente, who would not make any mistakes from there. He made it 3-0, just shy of the hour mark, and then after some physical challenges both ways, Puerto Rico would eventually add a fourth to eradicate any semblance of doubt. Gamaliel Ortiz drawing a yellow card on that challenge from Hudson St. Amour. And as the half continued to tick on, there were moments from Turks and Caicos. They did win a penalty here. Skylar Selver sent down in the area, but eventually Lewis McCabe denied from 12 yards. It was not the best of penalties. Back to Curacao, where we round out a jam-packed night in Group B with a dominant victory by the favorites. Jamaica taking on the Cayman Islands for the fourth time in these respective nations' history at the U20 level, and it was one-way traffic from the get-go. Jamaica knowing that it needed a win to match Puerto Rico's result from earlier and climb back atop the table, and they didn't waste much time. 19 minutes in, O'Dane Wilberforce opening the scoring with a towering header, and that set the tone for the remainder of the fixture. Jamaica scoring after 19 minutes of some frustration, and then the floodgates started to open. A penalty on 28 minutes, Giovanni Taylor missing the initial effort, but following it up and driving it home to make it 2-0. And he would score 5 minutes later as well out of open play. You just see here Taylor's first effort saved, his tenacity rewarded with a goal, and that doubled the lead for Jamaica and put them well on their way to securing the eventual dominant 9-0 victory. This was the third, a sensational goal from Taylor, who just gets it on the half turn and caps off his brace 5 minutes after scoring the rebound from the penalty spot. You can argue that McLean should have done better here, may have even gotten a pair of palms to it, but not enough to keep them out. And then as halftime beckoned, Jamaica continued to create opportunities. It was a modest 3-0 lead at intermission for the Reggae Boys. But after halftime is when things really picked up. 6 goals in the second half for Jamaica, completely dominant after the halftime whistle went, and there was just no answer for the Cayman Islands once tired legs set in. This was a lovely team goal that eventually led to a tap in there from Orel Miller. That made it 4-0 on 52 minutes, and then 5 more would come. As the half wore on, you saw the goals begin to fly in more. Organization started to really cave for the Cayman Islands, and that is when they paid the price. This was one-touch football, liquid football, some would say, with Campbell Dennis at the source and Nugent substitute finished it off to make it 5, and that was on 70 minutes. It looked like maybe it would end 5-6-0, dominant victory, but ultimately not much more in it. But then Jamaica would just continue to push on. It was relentless. Jamari Nolan here getting on the end of this. That was the first of his hat trick in the final 11 minutes and change of the fixture. And you'll see a fair few more goals where that came from. This through ball that pretty much mimics the previous goal, just from the opposite flank. It's Nugent who tucks in the half space, and it is another substitute in Douglas who finishes with aplomb. And then there were 2 more goals for Nolan before the night was out. This the first of them. He's there to greet the ball at the back post from Santana Headley. No real issues there. And then at the death, the short corner routine. He picks out the top corner to perfection from outside the area. A highlight reel way to cap off a highlight reel night for the substitute. A hat trick inside the final 11 minutes and stoppage time.